I'm Brenda Foster, a 40-year-old accountant living in Billings, Montana. I used to think Christmas was a time for family to come together, but last year, everything changed forever. Picture this: the dining table glowing under twinkling lights, soft music playing, and the gift I'd prepared for my parents, a $5,000 check to help ease their debts resting in their hands. I smiled, believing they would finally see my sacrifices. But then my father leaned in, his voice sharp as a knife. "You know, Brenda, the best gift would be the day you're gone." My mother nodded, her eyes cold, agreeing that I was nothing compared to my brother. Those words hit me like a punch, deeper than any wound. For 10 years I had paid their mortgage, their bills practically carried their lives, yet I was the burden. That night I made a life-changing decision. I paid off their $50,000 mortgage, handed them a notice to leave the house I owned, and booked a flight to Paris. I wasn't running away. I was reclaiming my life. 2 days later, my phone filled with calls begging me to come back. But the best gift they wanted, I had already given it, and there was no turning back. If you were in my situation after years of sacrifice for your family only to be dismissed, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd spent all day preparing for our family's Christmas party in Billings, Montana, middle-aged and worn from years of carrying my parents' burdens. My father, old and hunched, sat across from me with my mother by his side. My brother was there too, quiet as always. I slid an envelope toward my parents, my hands steady. "This is for you," I said, voice even. Inside was a check for $5,000, enough to clear their car loan and some bills. For 10 years, I'd paid their mortgage, their utilities, their groceries, every cent a sacrifice to keep them afloat. I waited for a thank you, a glance of gratitude. Instead, my father, Walter, pushed the envelope back. "You think this fixes everything, Brenda?" His words cut like a blade. "You've never measured up to your brother." My mother, Joyce, nodded, her eyes hard. "Gregory's made us proud with his business," she said. "You're just a weight we carry." My brother Gregory didn't look up, didn't defend me. Their words landed like a fist, knocking the air from my lungs. Await me. The one who'd given everything. My face burned, but I held my composure, the guests' chatter masking my shock. I stood my chair scraping and mumbled, "I need a minute." I stepped onto the front porch, the Montana night biting at my skin. I stared at the faint glow of Christmas lights down the street, my mind racing. 10 years of late nights juggling my paycheck to cover their mortgage, their debts, their lives. I'd skipped my own dreams trips, savings a life of my own to keep them secure. Yet they praised my brother, who'd never offered a dime, never lifted a finger. They called me the burden. My father's voice replayed in my head. "You've never measured up." My mother's agreement stung deeper, her words a betrayal of every sacrifice. I thought of the countless times I'd bailed them out: emergency repairs, medical bills, grocery runs. They'd taken it all, never once saying thank you. My brother, meanwhile, was their pride, their shining star, while I was invisible. My hands shook, not from the cold, but from a fury I hadn't known I could feel. I'd given my life to them, and they'd thrown it back in my face. A guest's voice called from inside, asking if I was okay. I nodded, forcing a tight smile, but my heart pounded. I wasn't just hurt, I was done. Their words weren't a mistake. They were a truth they'd held onto for years. Standing on that porch, I felt something snap. I'd been their bank, their safety net, but no more. They wanted me gone. I'd give them exactly what they asked for, but on my terms. The next morning, I woke with a fire in my chest. My parents' words calling me a burden, praising Gregory while dismissing my decade of sacrifices, burned like a fresh wound. I couldn't shake the sting of their betrayal. Sitting at my kitchen table in Billings, Montana, I dialed Pamela Gray, my best friend. Her voice came through steady and warm. They said what she gasped when I told her about the Christmas party, about my father's cold dismissal, and my mother's agreement that Gregory was their pride. I poured out the hurt, the years of paying their mortgage, their bills, everything, while they lifted my brother up like a saint. "You've given them everything," Pamela said. "It's time to take your life back." Her words lit a fire in me, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just angry, I was ready to act. I hung up and called Victor Lane, my lawyer. "Victor, I need to know about the house." I said, my voice firm. He confirmed what I'd hoped: the house was in my name, Brenda Foster, because I'd been paying the mortgage for 10 years. "You have full control," he said. "They have no legal claim." His words were a lifeline. I could do this, reclaim what was mine. Victor promised to draft a notice for my parents to vacate, no questions asked. I thanked him, my resolve hardening. Their betrayal wasn't just words. It was a truth they'd lived by, and I was done being their doormat. Next, I called the bank and got Irene Watson, my contact there. "Irene, I want to pay off the mortgage," I told her. "The full balance today." She pulled up the account: $50,000, the last of my parents' debt I'd been chipping away at for years. I confirmed the transfer from my savings, every digit a step toward freedom. "It'll be processed by noon," Irene said, her tone professional, but kind. I hung up, my heart racing, not with fear, but with purpose. Paying off their debt wasn't for them. It was for me to cut the chains tying me to their ingratitude. I opened my laptop and searched for flights to Paris. The idea had sparked the night before, a fleeting thought that now felt like destiny. Paris, far from Billings, far from my parents' disdain, far from Gregory's shadow. I found a flight leaving in 3 days, one way, affordable enough for what was left in my account. I booked it, my fingers steady on the keys. This wasn't running away. It was choosing myself. For 10 years, I'd poured my life into their needs: mortgage payments, utility bills, emergency funds, while they called me a weight. No more. I thought of my sister Ellen, gone a decade now, who'd once told me to live for myself. Her voice echoed in my mind, urging me forward. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of my decision settling in. My parents wanted me gone. Fine. I'd give them that, but not the way they expected. I'd clear their debt, take back my house, and start over where their words couldn't reach me. The phone sat silent. No calls from my father or mother, no apologies from Gregory. Their silence only fueled me. I wasn't their bank anymore, wasn't their fallback. I was done carrying their lives while they lifted my brother above me. Paris wasn't just a destination, it was a promise to myself, a life I'd denied for too long. 3 days later, I sat at my desk, a blank sheet of paper in front of me. My decision was made: paying off my parents' mortgage, booking a flight to Paris, taking back my life. But one task remained. I needed to tell Walter and Joyce to leave. My pen shook, but my resolve didn't. I wrote a letter, direct and unyielding. They had 14 days to vacate my house, the one I'd paid for over a decade. Every word felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I folded the letter, walked to the living room, and placed it under the Christmas tree next to an old gift from Ellen, a small carved wooden box she'd given me years ago. It was the last place they'd look, but they'd find it. I picked up the box, its weight familiar, and opened it. Inside was Ellen's journal, her handwriting faded but clear. My sister, gone 10 years now, had always been my anchor. I flipped to a page I'd read 100 times. "Live for you, Brenda, not for them." Her words hit me hard, a reminder of the life I'd put on hold. For years, I'd poured my savings into Walter and Joyce's debts, mortgage bills, car repairs, while they praised Gregory, who gave nothing. Ellen had seen it, warned me to break free. I closed the journal, her voice steadying me. This wasn't just leaving, it was honoring her. I turned to my laptop and finalized the flight to Paris. The ticket one way was set for that afternoon. I'd chosen Paris because it felt far enough to escape their reach, a place Ellen had dreamed of visiting. The cost didn't scare me. I had just enough left after clearing their mortgage. I started packing, folding clothes into a single suitcase. No extras, no regrets. I kept it simple: jeans, sweaters, a notebook to write my thoughts. Each item felt like a step toward a new beginning, a life where I wasn't defined by their needs. I called Victor, my lawyer, to hand over the house. "Victor, I'm leaving today," I said, my voice calm. "Make sure they're out in 14 days. He confirmed the notice was ready, legal and binding. "I'll handle everything," he assured me. "The house is yours and they have no claim." I thanked him, feeling a weight lift. The house, my prison for a decade, would no longer tie me to their demands. I glanced around the living room, at the tree, the gift, the letter. Walter and Joyce hadn't called, hadn't apologized. Their silence was louder than their words at the party. I booked a ride to Billings Logan International Airport. Jamal Carter, the driver, arrived on time. I slid into the backseat suitcase beside me and gave him the address. "Airport, please," I said. Jamal nodded, his voice friendly. "Big trip?" he asked. I smiled, not ready to share. "Something like that." The drive was quiet, my mind racing with what I was leaving behind. Walter's dismissal, Joyce's agreement, Gregory's silence, they'd all chosen their side. I'd spent 10 years keeping them afloat, sacrificing my own dreams only to be called a burden. No more. As we approached the airport, I looked back at my house one last time. It stood there unchanged, but it wasn't home anymore. It was theirs, a place I'd paid for, a place they'd taken for granted. I thought of Ellen again, her journal in my bag, her words a guide. "Live for you," she'd written. I was doing just that. Jamal pulled up to the terminal and I stepped out, suitcase in hand. "Safe travels," he said. I nodded, my heart steady. I wasn't running. I was choosing freedom, a life where their voices couldn't reach me. Paris glowed through the plane window as I landed, my heart lighter than it had been in years. For the first time, I was somewhere they couldn't reach, somewhere I could breathe. I stepped off the plane, suitcase in hand, and felt a spark of something new. This wasn't just a trip. It was my chance to live for myself, not for their endless demands. My first stop was the Orsay Museum. I wandered through its halls, staring at paintings that felt alive with color and emotion. I didn't linger on details, just let myself feel the weight of art that had outlasted pain, much like I hoped to. Afterward, I found a small cafe nearby. I ordered a baguette, its crust crisp, and ate slowly, savoring each bite. It wasn't about the food, it was about being here in Paris, choosing what I wanted, not what they needed. For 10 years, I'd funneled my paychecks into their mortgage, their bills, their lives, while they praised Gregory's empty achievements. That life felt distant now, like a shadow I'd stepped out of. The next day, I signed up for a painting class in a small studio. Pierre Dubois, the art instructor, greeted me with a warm smile. "You're new to Paris?" he asked, his accent soft. I nodded, not ready to share my story. Pierre talked about French culture cafes that buzzed with ideas, artists who painted their truths. "Art is freedom," he said, guiding my brush across the canvas. I painted bold strokes, each one a release of the years I'd spent tethered to my parents' needs. Pierre's words stuck with me, a reminder that I could create something new, something mine. Later, I walked along the Seine River, my notebook in hand. I sat on a bench, opened it, and wrote about the freedom I felt. For the first time, I wasn't planning my life around their debts or their expectations. I wrote about the quiet joy of walking Paris's streets, of choosing my own path. The river flowed steadily, and I felt steady too, not the steadiness of obligation, but of possibility. I thought of Ellen, my sister, who'd urged me to live for myself. Her journal tucked in my bag was a constant reminder. She'd have loved this city, its life, its art. I was here for both of us now. As I wrote, I reflected on the decade I'd given to Walter and Joyce. Every paycheck stretched thin, every sacrifice made to keep their house, their car, their comfort. They'd taken it all, called me a weight, while lifting Gregory as their pride. But here in Paris, I saw it clearly. I wasn't their burden. I was enough. I deserved this, deserved to walk through a city that didn't know their voices, to paint, to write, to live. Each step along the Seine, each word in my notebook was a declaration. I wasn't running from them. I was claiming myself. The days blurred into moments of discovery. I visited more galleries, ate at quiet cafes, listened to street musicians. Pierre's class became a routine, his lessons about art and life sinking in. "You paint with heart," he told me one day, nodding at my canvas. I smiled, feeling a pride I hadn't known in years. Back in Billings, my worth was measured by what I gave them. Here, it was measured by what I created, what I chose. I wrote more in my notebook about Paris, about freedom, about the woman I was becoming. The weight of their words, their betrayal was fading, replaced by a certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be. A week into Paris, my phone buzzed as I sat in a small cafe. I glanced at the screen, Dad. My heart skipped, not from fear, but from a flicker of curiosity. I answered, and Walter's voice came through, shaky and urgent. "Brenda, you need to come back," he said. "We're staying with Gregory, but he can't support us. His business is failing." Joyce's voice cut in, pleading. "We need you, Brenda. We're sorry." I leaned back, the cafe's chatter fading. They'd found the letter under the Christmas tree, moved out of my house, and turned to Gregory, their pride, only to be turned away. His success, the one they'd boasted about, was a mirage. I pictured Walter and Joyce humbled, expecting me to save them again. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I've given enough." Walter stammered. "But we're your parents." Joyce added. "You can't just abandon us." Their pleas didn't move me. For 10 years, I'd paid their mortgage, their bills, their everything, while they called me a burden and praised Gregory. Now they wanted my help because their golden son couldn't deliver. I ended the call, my hands calm. For the first time, their voices didn't weigh me down. I felt light, unburdened, like Paris itself had lifted me. I left the cafe and headed to the Eiffel Tower. I'd seen it in pictures, but standing beneath it, I felt a quiet awe. It wasn't about the view, it was about being here, choosing my own path. I wandered nearby streets, letting the city's energy fill me. Paris wasn't just a place, it was proof I could live without their demands. I thought of Ellen, my sister, who'd urged me to break free. Her words echoed as I walked, each step a reminder of the life I was building. Later, my phone pinged a message from Pamela. "How's Paris treating you?" She wrote, her tone casual. I smiled, typing back about the cafes, the art, the freedom. "It's everything I needed," I replied. Pamela didn't pry or offer advice, just shared a quick joke about French bread. It was a normal conversation, the kind I hadn't had in years, free from the weight of obligation. I tucked my phone away, grateful for her check-in, and kept walking. That afternoon, I found another cafe on a quiet street. I ordered a coffee, sat outside, and watched the world go by. The drink was strong, its warmth steadying me. I pulled out my notebook, the one I'd written in by the Seine, and jotted down my thoughts. I wasn't the daughter who fixed their problems anymore. I was a woman carving her own space thousands of miles from their expectations. Walter and Joyce's call had stirred something, but not guilt, clarity. They'd relied on me for a decade, taken every dollar, every sacrifice, and still called me a weight. Gregory's failure only proved what I'd known: their praise for him was hollow, their love conditional. As I sipped my coffee, I felt independence settle deeper. Paris wasn't just an escape. It was where I was becoming myself. I thought of the house in Billings, now empty, the mortgage paid by my hand. I'd given them everything and they'd thrown it back. Now they were Gregory's problem, not mine. I wrote in my notebook, "I'm not their burden. I'm my own strength." The words felt true, final. I closed the book, paid for my coffee, and walked back into the city, my steps lighter than ever. The return flight landed at dusk, and I stepped back into Billings, Montana after months in Paris. The air felt familiar, but I wasn't the same. I'd left behind Walter and Joyce's demands, their accusations, their preference for Gregory. My house, the one I'd paid for over a decade, waited for me. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The place was empty, stripped of their presence. Only my things remained: my books, my clothes, a few photos. The silence was stark, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt like mine. On the kitchen counter, I found a letter Walter's handwriting scrawled across the envelope. I opened it, bracing myself. "You're selfish, Brenda," it read. "You abandoned your family, left us with nothing." Joyce's signature followed her words sharp, accusing me of betraying them. They wrote about their struggle, how they'd expected me to stay to keep bailing them out. I read it once, then tore it to pieces. Their words didn't sting anymore. I'd given them 10 years, my savings, my time, my dreams, while they called me a burden and lifted Gregory above me. Their blame was theirs, not mine. I called Victor and met him at his office the next day. "They're gone," he said, his voice steady. "Walter and Joyce rented a small apartment across town. They're struggling with bills, but that's their choice now." I nodded, unsurprised. They'd relied on me for everything: mortgage, utilities, car payments, while praising Gregory's hollow success. Now, without my support, they faced the reality of their decisions. Victor handed me a file confirming the house was mine, free of their claims. "You did the right thing," he said. I thanked him, feeling a quiet certainty. This wasn't guilt. It was closure. Back at home, I stood in the living room, the space now entirely my own. I thought of Ellen, my sister, whose words had guided me to Paris. "Live for you," she'd said. I'd done that, and it changed me. Walter and Joyce's letter tried to pull me back, to make me their crutch again, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I remembered their Christmas party, their cruel words, their blind devotion to Gregory. For years, I'd carried their weight, paid their debts while they dismissed me. Gregory, their pride, had failed them just as I'd known he would, yet they still blamed me, not him. I walked to the window, looking out at the street I'd known my whole life. Paris had shown me what freedom felt like: painting, walking the Seine, choosing myself. Billings was home, but not their home. I'd reclaimed this house, my life, my worth. Their letter, their accusations, were proof of their refusal to see me. I didn't owe them anything, not my money, not my guilt. I thought of the years I'd sacrificed, the dreams I'd buried to keep them afloat. No more. I was done being their shadow, done living for their approval. Standing there, I knew I'd made the right choice. Leaving for Paris, cutting their hold, reclaiming my house. It was all for me. Walter and Joyce's struggles were theirs to bear, not mine. Gregory's failure only sharpened the truth: their love was conditional, their loyalty misplaced. I felt no anger, only resolve. This house, this life was mine to shape, now free from their expectations. I'd come back stronger, ready to build something new. Standing in my empty house, I felt free, not bound by Walter and Joyce's expectations anymore. Their words at the Christmas party, calling me a burden, had pushed me to reclaim my life. I'd learned a hard truth: setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. For 10 years, I'd poured my savings into their debts, only to be dismissed while they praised Gregory. Paris taught me my worth, and returning to Billings sealed it. I wasn't their crutch. I was enough. I decided to sell the house. It held too many memories of their ingratitude, of my sacrifices. I contacted a realtor to list it, planning to move to a smaller apartment in Billings, or maybe return to Paris, where I'd tasted true freedom. The choice was mine, not theirs. I imagined a new space, one I'd fill with my own dreams, maybe a canvas for painting inspired by the art I'd discovered abroad. The house, once a chain, would fund my next step, whatever I chose. Walter and Joyce faced their consequences. They rented a small apartment, struggling with bills they'd never managed alone. Without my support, their reliance on Gregory crumbled. His business, their pride, couldn't sustain them. Their favoritism, their refusal to value me, left them with nothing but their own choices. I felt no guilt. They'd taken my decade of devotion and thrown it back, blaming me for their struggles. Their fate was the result of their own actions, not mine. This journey taught me to protect my self-respect. I'd spent years seeking their approval, only to learn it was never mine to earn. Setting boundaries meant saying no, choosing myself even when it hurt. Paris showed me a life where I could thrive, not just survive. I'd honored Ellen's advice to live for me, and I'd carry that forward wherever I went next. To you reading this, thank you for following my story. I hope it resonates, makes you think about your own boundaries. Have you ever had to draw a line to protect yourself? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you've found your strength. For me, it was leaving, reclaiming my life, and learning I deserved better. I'm not defined by their words anymore. I'm free.